need to get
We'll see. That's the thing. I don't see Calgary shutting down Chicago's offense.
exactly.
So what I think is going to happen in this series is whoever scores the most goals will win. It's going to be
It's
a shootout.
it's going to be a high scoring series, but also I think that Calgary has been, they've been limping into the playoffs here. They've been struggling. They've been losing a lot of games. That loss to Edmonton, which proved them they've ever since the All Star break. They had a 13-point lead over Vancouver.
I
They
think
blew that.
everyone kind of realizes that's due to injuries.
Exactly, it's also the injuries, but and since they've had those injuries, they've basically been very inconsistent with their play. Mika Kiprusoff, he's not really playing up to his full potential.
I think the
So
reason is because his defenders in front of him are just dreadful.
exactly, Calgary's
I've
defense
seen
this year
so
has not
many
been.
really awful
Mm-hmm.
plays by
I
defenders that
mean,
make me cringe.
Calgary's offense this year has been great. The addition of Ole Jokinen,
Mike Camilleri,
man,
he has
yeah,
been great.
that was a good addition at the deadline, helped them out a lot. I just think that yes, Calgary basically, if they can, and let's look at Chicago's goaltending situation. They have Cristobal Huey or Javi Bulin. It looks as though they're going to run Javi Bulin at this point, which
Well, yeah, the thing that
yeah,
really confuses me about their choice there is why would they sign QA to this massive contract in the offseason if they're not going to start him for the playoffs?
I mean, Huey's a good goaltender, but if they're going to ride Javi Bulin here, he's not the same person he was when Tampa Bay won the cup.
Well,
He's not the same goalie.
for Chicago, they're really lucky. They have two goalies. If one plays awful, they can just stick the other one in there because they're both really good goalies.
Exactly.
The Flames do not have that, as
They don't have a backup.
Mechelini has one win this
So
season, and it was in the last game of the season.
It's either Kiprusoff or nothing for the Flames. If Kiprusoff doesn't play well,
I
it's going to be tough.
I have a feeling that this could be a 7-game series. It'll go back to Chicago, and the away team will skate home victorious.
I think that
I'm going with the Flames.
Oh, well, I'm gonna have to go. Actually, it's gonna be. I agree with you on it's gonna be a tough series. I think though the Blackhawks I might escape with this one in 7. But you know what? It's gonna be hard, and I really can't predict who's gonna win. But I'm gonna have to go with the Blackhawks in 7 at this point.
If the Flames rough them up, and the Flames are always known to do that, and since Chicago reminds me of like a bunch of little boys, if we can rough them up and scare them a bunch, and hurt a couple of their players, I'm not saying that's a good thing, but if we accidentally break a couple legs,
Chicago's a young team, so you can't count
if we intimidate them,
yeah.
then they could really let it slide,
Yeah,
and we have a chance.
Chicago hasn't been in the playoffs in a while. They're a young team. The longer this series goes, I think Calgary will have a higher chance of winning it just because of their inexperience.
Well, Eastern Conference.
All right.
Do we just want a quick question of the Eastern Conference?
No, you
or should we just go through it?
Why don't we go through it? Yeah, let's go through it. Here, why don't I
Boston and Montreal. That is a very, very good
Boston
series.
Montreal. This is a rematch, except this time Boston's in the 1 spot.
Yeah,
and Montreal's in the 8 spot.
Exactly. And last time, if you all remember, Boston, who was in the 8th spot, sent this series to 7 games, which no one saw coming. And eventually they lost, sure, but that gives Montreal some hope. I mean, Boston is a greatly better team. They're vastly better in every single way. They have way better goal scoring depth. Canadians just overrated so many of their players, and they didn't seem to realize that Kovalev won't give you 40 goals. And, and I don't know. There's just something about the Canadians that just doesn't add up to a playoff win against Boston. Although they'll probably make it a long series just because playing in Montreal is hard for away teams. So
yeah, well, here's what I see in Montreal. If you all remember, I believe it was actually last year. The Ottawa Senators had a great start to the season. They had a very quick start. They were the best team in the league, and then they fell. They lived into an eighth playoff spot against Pittsburgh, and they got swept. This is what I see in Montreal. Remember earlier this year, Montreal was a really very good team, and here they are. They've broken down. Their goaltending has been inconsistent. Their players have been inconsistent, and now they are in an 8th spot against Boston.
I wouldn't say inconsistent. I'd say their goaltending's been absolutely horrible.
Because they don't know what they don't. They're like
it's been very consistent. Consistently bad.
Yeah, they don't know what to do. They don't know who to start. Both their goalies not been playing up to standard. I see Boston winning in 4 or 5. I don't even see this being a close series.
You don't see it being close at all. You don't see this rivalry maybe.
Although it is a rivalry,
shape.
but this time Boston is so much stronger than Montreal. They are the best team in the East by quite a bit.
The one thing that concerns me for Boston is that they have so many young guys. Krejci, Kessel, and Lucic. I mean, like, three guys that they basically rely on for half their offense, and they're playoff rookies. So
exactly, but it's like, who do you go with in net for Montreal? Are they going to go with Halak or are they going with Price? Like, both of them are going to be nervous, and if they couldn't pull it off in the regular season, they sure I think will pull it off in the playoffs.
well, probably not. But
so goaltending is going to be the main issue for Montreal
and
here.
I know everyone says Thomas is going to win the Vezina, blah blah blah. He has this style that really concerns me. Like
his style, yeah.
He has the type of style, well, like, as long as it's out of the net.
Yeah, it's
like,
the opposite of a style of, say, Luongo, great positional goalie. It's basically he flops around, but he keeps the puck out of the net.
But it's hard to rely on a guy like that. Like, and Fernandez has. He started good, but he's really struggled.
But I don't think you can deny Tim Thompson's a great goalie, and I think that Boston has had too good of a year to lose in the first round.
Oh, they won't lose.
Montreal. They will not lose to Montreal.
I think it'll be a long series.
I think it's gonna be 5. I think it's gonna be Boston 5. I think Montreal will take a bit of they'll win a game at home, but I don't think they're really gonna have much of a chance in this series.
Let's say 6, but
all right. Well. And now let's move on to the second matchup in the East, the 2 versus 7, which is Washington versus New York.
I think a sweep. I think a sweep to Washington. And New York's just dreadful. I'm sorry.
I think it's
New York's the type of team that they're just like the New York Yankees. Like, oh, who cares about drafting? Who cares about any of that? We'll just sign free agents in the offseason and hope it pays off. It never has paid off. It rarely pays off just signing random people. And that's clearly what happened this year. They put way too much stock in their new signees and their signees from 2 years ago, and they've just completely overrated their offense, and it's been horrible all year.
Exactly. Washington has basically a very potent offense and mixed in with D-man scoring, such as Green, and of course we have Ovechkin here, Seven, Backstrom, all these great players, and of course their coaches, ever since he got hired last year, has been just doing great things for the team. He's been doing great things with his team.
Great for the fans.
And Washington has just they're an absolutely great team this year, and they have this high scoring. And the thing is with New York is they don't score. They're not an extremely high scoring team.
They don't score at all.
They try to play a defensive game, but their defensemen aren't good enough to actually pull off that style of play.
Well, that's why they traded for Nick Antropov for more offense.
So the resulting thing is what happens is they're a team that's neither defensive nor offensive, and they're just kind of stuck in the middle, relying on a transition game, which hasn't really worked for them.
It seems every year they come up in around the same spot in the standings. They always make a trade at the deadline.
And they don't do much.
They don't do much. Who's the defenseman, Derek Morris, they traded for? Do you know how many prospects they gave away for Derek Morris?
And I mean, I don't think New York stands.
That's why New York won't build. They'll just continue to middle because they don't keep their prospects.
Yeah, I don't think New York stands any chance in this series. It's going to be a clean sweep by Washington.
The only reason I think New York has a chance is because Theodore has been really shaky late down the stretch here. He's been really shaky, letting in some awful goals.
Yeah.
And
goaltending's really the only issue we got.
Goaltending's the real issue. It's the reason I think Washington won't win the cup. They don't have a chance at the cup because their goaltending's not good.
Well, Washington, I think everyone is pretty clear they're going to win this series, and it's going to be a short series.
Oh man,
and then they're going to be rested
to
play the next one. So I think we're pretty clear what's going to happen there.
I think sweet.
Now let's move on to the 3 versus 6 matchup, which is New Jersey and Carolina.
This is actually the most, in my opinion, the closest matchup of the Eastern Conference. Many people will say Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. No, I don't think so personally. It's definitely New Jersey and Carolina. Carolina has one of the most underrated goaltenders in the NHL in Cam Ward, who has been just phenomenal this season. Who's the reason Carolina is in the playoffs. Now, granted, Carolina kind of let it go down the stretch. They had a chance at, 4th. They've dropped down to 6th. Oh, well, because they've proven scoring from Eric Stahl. They have a great veteran presence like Ray Whitney.
And Rob
Brindamore. This is one series that, although I don't think it will happen, I think it's about a 50-50 chance.
It is. I can't really pick a winner. It's tough to pick a winner on this one because, of course, on the side of New Jersey, we got...
At the same time, New Jersey's so good.
We have
great goaltending, great goal scoring, great everything.
The reason I think New Jersey's better this year is because they used to be, maybe last year, 2 years ago, they were purely a defensive system. We're not producing much offense. Now, of course, we have Parise coming in there with how many goals does he have? 40 goals?
But he eclipsed the 40-goal mark. They have offensive defensemen such as